Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This week in America, Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist Jerry Gay has driven over 500,000 miles of America's back roads and highways during the past 40 years to continue his personal passion to see reality in everyday life. In his book, Seeing Reality, Humanity, Humility, and Humor, his exceptional photography conveys his truly positive and persuasive analysis as Jerry visualizes reality and encourages us to see solutions for challenges we now face in our ambiguous universe. An amazing career at age 28, awarded the Pulitzer Prize for News Photography. The next year, elected president of the National Press Photographers Association, an honored graduate and former instructor at the internationally acclaimed Brooks Institute of Photography. He demonstrated his photo mastery with newspapers nationwide, including New York Newsday, LA Times, St. Paul Pioneer Press, and the Seattle Times. Editor, visual artist, universal philosopher, and author of Seeing Reality, Humanity, Humility, and Humor, Jerry Gay, our special guest on This Week in America. Hi, Jerry. Welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Well, thank you again so very much, Rick. I'm really is to be on your program, as I mentioned. As we first said hello, I'm just so honored to be with you today. Thank you.
Well, the honor is ours having you on the program, and the time is going to go by too quickly. But let's start with the very basics here. What inspired you to create the photographic book about life and reality in America? Actually, a book that's over 40 years in the making, I might add. When did you first get the idea that I'm going to take these pictures and I think there's a message here and I'll publish a book?
Well, thank you. I from my childhood growing up and just things that I had to learn from, and then growing up in a strong fundamental church, which seems to bring so many powerful insights and then restrictions and ideas and thoughts. And as I was growing, I felt a much stronger, more personal insight coming to me, and in junior high, I started taking pictures, and it just took me into a whole nother dimension of seeing life and then being able to capture images. And then as I went into my life, I learned how powerful pictures are to each and every person, particularly when I studied the near-death experience that people that have in their life journey, then they've come back to,
yes,
they've been sent back, and then what was it all about? And they're going, my gosh, I had a life review and I saw everything. I'm going to change my life.
Yes, exactly.
I see the relevance and importance of it now. And so for me to personalize it, I decided I was going to, I read so much about this powerful element of life that the churches all talked about, Jesus. And as I personalized my own journey and prayers with God, it was like, the real truth came to me. It was that Jesus came to be an example, then encourage others to be their own example. And then I also found some strong, as I was doing all this and traveling across the country. This first started with pictures in junior high school and high school on the annual staff, and then as it grew into going into newspapers and, small weekly papers and daily papers, and then my own magazines and everything, and traveling for my books, I recognized that in a deep, real, simple perspective, studying the near-death experience, that each and every one of us is making pictures in the mind of God. And the life review that a person has when their energy is face-to-face, mind-to-mind, heart and soul with that name we want to call God, but it becomes much more personal after a while. It's like, what did you learn when I sent you to be you in the earth and you came to create life? Yes. And that's when they have the life review. And so then that formalized to me that my journey all those years was I wanted to emulate seeing life and seeing that in other people and seeing everyday life situations and encouraging and honoring other people by the pictures I would take. And then I also learned that to make even more powerful pictures, to bring in a spiritual essence when I go somewhere, be creating life with the life form in front of me, whether it's people in a group or individually or in a situation, or when I'm out working with plants and animals and whatever, be in the moment and let the pictures be made. And then fortunately I had cameras over the years, film cameras and my Nikon, and just and then going to the darkroom and spending hours creating the picture with different ways of seeing it and enlarging it, and so that guided me to my life as how I see things, as who I am, and I've recognized that's for everybody. How we see the world is who we are.
Yes, and we get to see they're more than pictures. You look at these, and there's such a wealth of information, stories behind all of the pictures that you will see in Jerry's book. Our guest is Jerry Gay, Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist. His book is Seeing Reality, Humanity, Humility, and Humor. So many pictures, so many topics in the book. I know that Ted Bundy was a subject. Talk about what you personally learned about Ted Bundy, and specifically his childhood.
Well, the childhood came after I met him, because when I was working for the Seattle Times and I was heading back to Colorado for the National Press Photographers annual convention, since I was a regional director, a reporter came to me and said, "Oh, by the way, this fellow who was, you heard about Ted Bundy, who's had several mass murderers here in the area, he's been recaptured in Colorado, and since you're going to be there, I've arranged to have you stop in and talk with the police department and spend some time with Ted and take some pictures." So when I got to Colorado, and I'm going, what am I going to do now? So I got there, and they said, "Give us your camera bag, and then go in the bathroom. You're going to be with him for 3 hours, and you can't leave. So we're going to check and make sure you've got nothing in your bag. You're going to see him, and then you're going to have to get all that out of you so you can stay there for 3 hours." And thank goodness I was young enough. I'm not like now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do about 5 minutes, and Ted, I'll be back in a second. Hang in there. I'll be right back.
That's right. So, but my approach to people was, I've learned that I couldn't walk in with the camera, shoving it, and then making that the focus. It was like that would discourage or distract or often make people upset. So I would just sit down and get to know somebody first and say, well, after a bit, let's make some pictures together. And so the energy was that, I would be working with them in situations. So here I was in this wasn't a jail cell. It was just a information room that people could talk with their attorney with, but it was pretty good size. And so I just crawled around and photographed Ted in different ways, and we sort of built a friendship on the time, because I was from Seattle and he was from Tacoma, and here we are in Colorado.
Yeah, exactly.
And I took it away from wanting to photograph him as a mass murderer, but I came to photograph you, Ted, as a person. And he just gave me himself in so many ways. So the 3 hours came and gone, and I took, how many rolls of color film and black and white, and when I left, and then 3-4 weeks after the whole experience was over, he escaped from Colorado. And that's when he went on their rampage on his way to Florida, killing a total of 50 to 60 women on his life journey of anger. And so it wasn't until years later I started, well, what made Ted so angry? And so what I learned, and again, what I'm going to tell you, Rick, is I'm not trying to be negative towards anybody. I'm just talking about the reality, because everybody has their own childhood and situations.
Yes.
And what I learned was just how important, how we raise our children to give them perspectives in life. and I had my own issues and all that, but growing up. But Ted, what I learned, Rick, was that his mother back in the 40s was just being an adventuresome young lady, and at the age of 18 in the 40s, she got pregnant. And can you imagine coming home to your mom and dad, and it was like, oh my gosh. I mean, this wasn't the 60s or 70s.
Exactly, yes. Yes.
This was back then, and so she had destroyed the family's reputation by being this young, crazy girl who's now pregnant. So, long story short, Ted's parents sort of felt, Ted's mom's parents were feeling, oh my gosh, is this, we're going to raise your baby, and we're going to be his parents, and you're going to be his sister, and you're going to get your life together, okay? So Ted grew up with Grandma and Grandpa being his mom and dad, and this older girl, much older,
Yes.
was his sister. So that was kind of a strange thing, but it's hard to imagine, but that's how it was. And then about when he was 8 or 9, somewhere in there, his mom found somebody named John Bundy, and they wanted to get married. And her parents are going, well, I guess she's old enough now. So the big bomb happened. Look, we're not really your mom and dad, we're your grandparents. And this lady, your sister is your really mother, okay? And so, and your mom's going to marry John here, and so you're going to have a new family, and so we're going to always be supportive. But you're going to have to leave home now and have a new life, and we love you. And could you imagine this little boy on the inside suddenly going,
oh,
wait,
yes,
wait, what? Mom, Dad, and then this lady who was a sister didn't really care for him that much because she was trying to get her own life together.
Exactly, yes.
And then this fella, John Bundy, was now, Ted went from being a different guy, now he was a Bundy kid. And then, so that's how he grew up in his later years. And at some point, it just, it was just so much in his heart and mind that he developed, as I can understand, some anger, distrust about his life. And of course, then that was just how life was.
Yes.
So deep in his heart, he developed an anger towards women. He couldn't trust them, really. But being a wild young boy, he learned how to be, so he'd wind up having his opportunity to get next to somebody and be emotionally take over. And then when something negative would happen, he'd pull out the gun and shoot her. And that became his way of resolving his own life journey and justifying why he could, because nobody else knew what he knew about life.
What a chilling story. With us on the program is Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist Jerry Gay. We're talking about his new book, which is available at Jerry's website, jerrygay.com. Also, of course, available at Amazon, the usual places. The book is Seeing Reality, Humanity, Humility, Humor. Boy, the time is going by so quickly. So many different areas, topics that you address in the book. I know climate change is something that's very important to you. Talk about that, and what purpose does climate change, do you think, play in our world today?
Climate change. Well, first of all, thank you for saying that too. And it's the reason I find it important because of my. When we look at what's happening to the planet and the weather today, and the storms that are just getting stronger, and the weather is getting more diverse, and when we stop and look at it, we are killing the planet.
Yes.
you can imagine how it was thousands of years ago, all trees, all soil, all things living together. And now when you get out on the road, there's asphalt everywhere, and there's homes everywhere, and there's no trees hardly ever, and it's all in it. We have created an industrial complex, and we have forgotten to honor the planet as a living organism. And it's all about, we have taken, and the reason it is because there's two sides. There's the world of the PP, and the other side of that is the LP. Well, what's happening with the PP, and it's taken over because it's so powerful, I mean, you see it in the White House too, it's all about power and profit. And that's what's in the heart and mind of most everybody, what to do, how to have power in the groups you're in, what to rise into, how to make profit. It's all about that.
Yes.
And then those on the other side, the love and P group, love and peace, it's like trying to give love to the planet. And what is love? And we need to bring back love. And that's one of the things that I think is fine. But if we're all learning, we're living on a situation where we need to learn what are we all learning together with the planet, because we're all here in this dimension creating life lessons of understanding. And this is a very powerful time in consciousness as we recognize that we need and are given the opportunity to make changes in the world.
In the world now, it's very interesting, volatile times in politics and economics. With everything that you see, with the economics, with the politics, helping or hurting the world as a whole?
Well, it's hurting it in a way that it's showing that we're not supportive
Yes.
of the planet itself. We're just doing what we have to do to do our own journey. And of course, the hard part is too, most people are concerned that they can't do it themselves. They have to belong to certain groups. So there's political groups, religious groups, all of them posing they have the answer, belong to our group, give us 10% of your income, and read our books and do what we say. And when the end of all this, you're going to go to a life of eternal sanctity because of what you've done now. And that's what it's all about. Or join a certain political group no matter what. And we have to do what's right. And so, it's like, this is all about learning. This whole dimension is consciousness. And every living element is a part of it. Every blade of grass, every rock, everything that was created is a part of it. Of course, we don't see it as humans. We just, how we can use it to get along. But when you study life experience, that the source of life, we want to have that. We want to call God this religious name. But in reality, I've found that the truth is that God is a name for universal consciousness in the truth of reality. And the dynamics in that universal consciousness is there's a source and a force. And of course, Star Wars wanted to talk only about the force because part of their life is they want to kick butt. So we'll take that male side and may the force be with you. But what about the source of life that creates all, which is that female perspective? So we need to let's get back to the source and the force, and let's start living as a planet that we're all family living and loving together. But this is all of learning, so we see how over the generations when we studied our history and, what the Romans did this and all this and back in the early Americans and before all that and, way long time ago, it's been the journey to see where we are now. And we're at a place that in the classroom of life, what are we learning now and why? Well, the ultimate answer is that we're in the classroom, but every person has to learn, wait a minute, what am I learning? What am I doing? How am I? Who am I? Well, what was Jesus really saying? He grew up with Mother Mary, this powerful woman. And what did she teach Jesus really? She said, Jesus, now listen, God made everything and every person, everything. We're all a part of it. All of us. We're all here learning together. Now, it's not going to be easy, but this is the truth. So he said, well, Mom, if they're not safe, God created everyone. And she said, okay. And then this is in the Bible. Jesus left for 3 or 4 years, came back. And could you imagine him, Mom, you're right. God did make everybody.
Yes.
I was hugging everybody on the desert. We were all having a good time. and I couldn't believe it. Mom, you're right. And he says, I'm going to teach it. And I'm going to personalize it. So, Mom, from now on, your son is Jesus Christ. And, Mom, I am the Son of God in my life. And my message is that we're all God's kids in life, and we're all brothers and sisters, but we all have to see ourselves as being one unique part of God. And we can see how that worked, because in the Bible, Jesus tried to teach that message.
Yes.
And what happened? The church said, get out of here. We have our doctrines, and you're walking around saying, you're God's kids, and everybody in the church is God's kids. Wait a minute. That's not, get out of here, Jesus. So that's what happened. And then, of course, but his message was so powerful. People are going, wow. So next thing you know, he was taking people out in the desert and just said, hey, sit in the sand. You don't have to be in a fancy building, and I'm not going to take an offering. I'm just here to be sharing with you what we can do as a family, and when we all love each other, we can make miracles happen together. And that's how it truly was. And of course, that went on for 3 years, and it got to the point it was changing reality. And so what happened, and it's in the Bible too, that one day he came into town with the 12 and people were all applauding, and this, hey, here comes Jesus, and here comes our brother, yay, yay. And they were all hugging, and all of a sudden the government said, get this fellow. So they got him. And then, of course, they put him up on a cross, and they, crucified him. And that was their way of saying, you can't do this. And, of course, he had a near-death experience briefly. He came back, and what he truthfully said to his disciples, the love that we're talking about is going to come back someday and change the world. Well, of course, after he was dead and all these things had been done, and the church said, we're going to mark it, he was the only Son of God. And now we have a sacred black book. And it's the only sacred book. And it describes how Jesus was the only Son of God. And you have to do what he said, or what we say he said. And don't forget, you have to do that and give us 10% of your income.
Yes.
Or you're going to go to hell. Well, that's where it's at today. But as I'm talking with you, Rick Bratton, at your great show This Week in America, and part of it saying, well, look what's happening, folks. This is the book of Revelations. And all the things talked about the world's collapsing. Why? Because of all the false beliefs. And so what is the answer? If you want to see the true destiny and the true aspect of who you are, go home to that sacred room. Go into the bathroom. Close the door. Turn on the light. Look into the mirror. Here's the answer to your life.
That's
be the best you can be.
That's wow. Intellectually, there is so much that we just talked about, that Jerry just talked about. Life being a classroom, for example, that's still resonating from a couple of minutes ago, and that's so true. The book is so powerful. Seeing Reality, Humanity, Humility, and Humor from Jerry Gay, Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist. The book has been called a book that belongs in every serious photography collection. Basically belongs, let's just take a serious photography collection. If you just like photography, if you like to think, if you like to look at pictures and have those pictures draw you out intellectually a little bit, that's what you'll find in the book, Seeing Reality, Humanity, Humility, Humor. Jerry, the time has gone by way too quickly. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to do this again. Thank you so much for being with us on the program today. Best of luck with the book, which I say 40 years in the making. It is such a fascinating look through, a look at reality. Thank you for bringing it to us.
Well, Rick Bratton, thank you very much. And I feel so honored for being a part of all you're trying to do and say and be a part of in This Week in America. And you as a person in your own, I don't know how much the folks know about you, but even you and your heart to help St. Jude Children's Research, and you're helping raise over $20 million and helping, and you're doing so much, and I feel so grateful to be a part of your program to help others see about, the three important things of life, and that we're all, the three important words we all have to remember is, I am now. That's all we have is now.
Yes, it's been such a pleasure to have Jerry with us. His website, by the way, is jerrygay.com. Books available at Amazon, the usual places. Jerry, I look forward to having the chance to do this again. Thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Thank you so much, Rick Bratton, so much. Thank you.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you. The book again, Seeing Reality, Humanity, Humility, and Humor. Jerry Gay is a Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist, our guest on This Week in America. You can find out more about Jerry by linking directly to his website if you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back after these messages.